Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of May 4th through the 10th of 2026. All right, so this week we are in the third quarter moon, which is the action phase of the lunar cycle. This is going to go exact over the weekend, so a great weekend for taking action on essentially the full moon energy. So we had a full moon late last week, and so that was a time of getting some new perspective, maybe even making some shifts and changes, and this week makes it absolutely fantastic to apply those and likely starting to see things manifesting in that regard towards that weekend time. This week we have Mercury going into Aries, fiery Aries, to add to the sun that's already here. So even though we've had a lot of watery energy, and we will still have that, especially with Mars still in Pisces, the shift is certainly going into the more fire side. So Aries is about assertiveness, it's about directness, it's about independence, and so the sun here has already been helping us focus more on this part of life, to express that part of our life more. But now Mercury helping us think more like this and communicate more like this as well. To add to the fire, we do have Mars squaring up to Jupiter early in the week, so Mars is that Aries energy. And although being cooled off in Pisces at the moment, the square to Jupiter can really magnify this. So this can be actually some buoyancy, some confidence, some assertiveness, but also perhaps a pendulum swing to the other side. Not confident, not assertive, maybe a little more passive. So this pendulum can swing, and so it's all about finding that balance between the two, but it can make it very constructive. And this week we have some deep energy. Tuesday and Wednesday, Mercury will be squaring Pluto while Pluto goes retrograde. So most likely a bigger picture theme, but as the days unfold, with Pluto retrograde, probably starting to see how things can be reworked when it comes to deep stuff in life. So reworking things like deeper relationships, deeper connections, healing, deep diving with things, all this going through a reworking process. But the square to Mercury around Tuesday gives us a deep mind, deep communication that can be utilized healthfully. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here's the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, May 4th. And as you can see here, we are using the actual size of the constellations as seen in the visible sky. This will change the signs greatly. For example, if you're hearing that the sun is in Taurus right now, if you do use an app and look at the sky with, in this case, a telescope if you're looking at the sun, but you will see the sun is in Aries. And so we are using the actual placements. And if you are new to this channel, it's very important that you check out that link down below for more information. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a quick recap. We've had a lot of Pisces energy. A lot of the energy has been slowly shifting into Aries. We had the sun shift into Aries recently, been about 2 weeks. And so the focus has been lately on that fiery assertiveness. And so it is the theme, it is the season for cultivating more initiative, more proactivity, and again, cultivating that sense of self, who we are, what we need, and that independence. And so that's very strong. But this week, right off the bat, Mercury entering into here really adds to that. Mercury adds the communicative element and also the mental element. So a little more fire with our minds. This can be a strong contrast, actually. Mercury is very uncomfortable in Pisces where he's been. So this is likely to be a week, especially as we go through, give it about late Monday into Tuesday, our minds coming out of that water, coming out of that ether, maybe things getting a little bit more clear, maybe a little bit more, again, assertiveness with ideas and communication can be a strong contrast coming out of that Pisces. But we still have a lot of Pisces. Of course, the outer planets are here, but Mars being here really adds to it. And this is a place also uncomfortable for Mars. Mars is that fire, and Pisces, again, the water. So the water is really cooling things off when it comes to that fiery side. And this can, help us cultivate more of a spiritual connection to things. And that's really fundamentally what this is about, to have more of this sense of flow, more of a sense of doing what's soul fulfilling, to put energy towards the things that are maybe not physically or ego, benefiting, but benefit us on a soul level, or more because we feel it, or it's a dream or ideal or an intuition or soul guidance. This is great. Those things are great to be putting that fire energy towards. And this helps us get into a state of flow a little more, helps us go with the current instead of swimming up the current when it comes to Mars there. And Venus is in Taurus, her home sign, so she's very comfortable here. And so when it comes to enjoyments and it comes to relationship stuff, specifically the more receptive parts of relationships. Of course, Mars is the fiery part of relationships, but Venus is the receptive part. But all that's more grounded, and good time to be stopping to smell the roses, taking things one step at a time, connecting to the natural or sensual world a little bit, and cultivating a strong sense of self-reliance and resourcefulness, which can be very, again, enjoyable and great for relationships at the moment. So that's the recap with the fast movers concentrated in this fiery yet watery yet earthy energy, mainly with that shift from the water to the fire. Now, in terms of the aspects this week, starting right off the bat here on Monday, we've got that Mars in Pisces squaring up to Jupiter. And so Jupiter tends to over expand things, and especially in a square, it can be perhaps unbalanced, or its default is unbalanced, but we can balance it and we can use it constructively. So this can start the week with, again, a lot of optimism, maybe confidence, buoyancy on one side, but then on the other side, the opposite of all that, non-confidence, non-optimism, pessimism, whatever you want to call it, but that pendulum swinging between what we can do, what we want, what's possible. And so this is the square, and it's great to actually implement this constructively. And so some of the ways to do that is to, yes, pull upon that fire, pull upon those opportunities, but again, see how we can do it constructively. Because it's one thing to feel something, it's another thing to incorporate it. It's one thing to hope for something, it's another thing to incorporate it. The squares are really about incorporating energy. They're really where things get grounded, where things get constructively built and acted upon. So it actually makes it a great early part of the week to act upon opportunities, potentials, things that we're confident about or can be confident about, and these things then materialize, because it's the squares where things really materialize. So it can be a very constructive week. Again, we'll be in the third quarter moon in the weekend, so all week we have this square energy, and so certainly constructive is the name of the game, and action is the name of the game, and manifestation is the name of the game this week. Now, also here on Monday, we're going to have that moon in Ophiuchus, that healer constellation. That's going to be actually the first half of Tuesday for most of us as well. So we've already had the moon in Scorpio on Sunday coming into this week, and now Ophiuchus, which is more on the healing side. So this is about bringing some deep stuff to the forefront, and with Ophiuchus to do some maybe shadow work or integration, or again, healing of all kinds, not just psychological or spiritual, but also physical and maybe even emotional. But, this more willingness to dive deep, willingness to heal and transform. We have this every month with the moon, of course, but it's always a great opportunity here. And once the moon does pass over the galactic center, the very transformative part of the sky right at the end of Ophiuchus, then we come out of that with that Sagittarian free spirit. So a little death and rebirth, if you will, one that we have every month, and that shift happening on Tuesday as we come out of Ophiuchus and start to enter into Sagittarius. Now, speaking of that deeper side, we do have Mercury squaring up to Pluto here, and so this adds to that depth most certainly. And so Mercury, that planet of, again, our mind and communication, is going to be in that deeper square with Pluto. So Pluto helps us see the depth of things, just like that Ophiuchus energy, Scorpio energy. And in the square, again, we can work with it constructively. So with Mercury, how can we perhaps communicate in a deeper way? Maybe move through some fears to communicate or do something, to incorporate maybe some of this depth in our life through how we're thinking about things, how we're communicating things. Mercury is very much the day-to-day planet, rules very much the day-to-day immediate environment type of stuff. And so this is getting that challenging energy by Pluto to get deep with this, to use our mind in deep ways, to communicate in deep ways, but again, with that conscious intention, since it's a square, and that helps us do it constructively. So great for things like research, uncovering deep things, again, personal development of any kind, especially with that Ophiuchus going on. Deep communications, intimate, vulnerable with those we want to trust. Also boundaried with those that need to be boundaried, right? This understanding that things are deep, but also need to be protected and also need those boundaries. And in other words, to do the deeper stuff in healthy and constructive ways. And so we have this another square opportunity to work with that. And then Pluto goes station here on Wednesday. So we usually don't feel this very personally unless Pluto is very prominent in your chart, or you have a lot of Scorpio or Ophiuchus in your chart, and that can certainly make it more personal. But an outer planet going station happens once a year here. A very slow-moving planet Pluto really makes it more collective than anything, but still something to be aware of. So around Wednesday, good to pause maybe with some of the deeper stuff in the sense of being aware of it, letting it come up. The actions are great, but at the same time, allowing things to come to us, to come to light, as the retrograde period is the time of reworking, re-understanding, and reevaluating perhaps some of this deeper stuff. So if Pluto's been strong for you, or some of this deeper energy has been strong for you, then this could mean a shift in those areas. It's good to allow for the next 6 months to be reworking in these areas, to allow for change, adaptability, different plans, more flexibility, a willingness to learn, a willingness to approach things differently when it comes to that deeper world. And so we could notice that shift on Wednesday, but again, give it the whole week. Good time to just see that the next 6 months will internalize more of that deeper energy, which is, of course, in and of itself a great opportunity to do some of this stuff, but in a personal or more internal or even more subconscious or psychological sort of way with Pluto retrograde. Okay, and that's again where the moon will be shifting into Sagittarius. So around that, we'll likely feel here this this late Tuesday, but really this whole middle part of the week, the moon in Sagittarius really gives us that bigger picture worldview. Sagittarius coming out of the deeper world helps us see things from a lighter perspective, much like that Jupiter energy, and a more philosophical or abstract perspective. And so a good middle part of the week, all the way up until mid-Friday, to view the bigger picture, to see things from that bird's eye view, to tap into that more abstract or philosophical side of our life, and even to access a bit of adventure, as Sagittarius is about expanding horizons. And this can mean expanding horizons mentally, but also spiritually, and of course, quite literally, as we can do with some of those adventurous things. So that takes us into the weekend there, where again we'll be in that third quarter moon. So the moon will be in its third quarter phase from Capricorn, squaring up to the sun in Aries. And so a good challenge this weekend is on the Capricorn side. Capricorn is much like Saturn, which is about seeing the long road. Yeah, so patience, discipline, perseverance, responsibility, these kinds of more grounded, responsible, foundation-building elements are absolutely great to work with over the weekend. But all in all, again, perhaps reflect back on late last week when we had the full moon. That's usually a time of insight or new perspective and what's supposed to be implemented for the remainder of the cycle. So now this weekend is the application of that, the action of that, and the manifestation of that. So good weekend to manifest, take action, and really put forward any new perspective shifts. It's just that with Capricorn, it's likely involving a bit of that responsibility and long-term view that we can really challenge ourselves to integrate. And as you can see, that's very different from the sun. The sun in Aries is about more immediate action. So it is also a weekend of balancing the long-term actions or goals with the short-term actions or goals between these two cardinal signs, which are fundamentally about taking action and building things, but in different ways. All right, and then that leads us here to Sunday. The moon will shift into Aquarius. Well, that's really late Sunday, so we're just going to think of the whole weekend here being in Capricorn. And perhaps late Sunday as well, though the sun will start to sextile up to Jupiter. Very minor anyways, plus again, it's going to be going into Monday. But nice to see that Jupiter, that planet of expansion, is in a good aspect to the expressive sun. And this can perhaps help us see things from, again, that higher picture, much like Sagittarius, much like this middle part of the week that we're likely already to have there. All right, everyone. So that's the week in a nutshell. Put simply, is we have the third quarter moon. That's over the weekend. It's a manifestation weekend. It's a good weekend to challenge ourselves. We're usually much more willing to take action this late in the lunar cycle. So the third quarter moon is much easier than the first quarter moon, but still good to challenge ourselves nonetheless and see things materializing. That will likely be wrapped up next week as we then finish the lunar month. As we approach that weekend, we do have this shift of energy, really, and it's really adding the fire, because Mercury in Aries adds that fire of communication, of how we're thinking about things, but also Mars squaring up to Jupiter. Again, that buoyancy or that over and under extreme with that fire energy. So again, constructive, but yes, can be very constructive when we're applying it that way. And then we also have this deeper energy, really Tuesday, Wednesday, with Mercury square Pluto. Again, can be used in healthy ways, through healthy ways of doing and working with the deeper side of life. And Pluto going retrograde, helping us starting to reflect on that a little bit. And that's with the moon then immediately going into Sagittarius, which is helping us see the bigger picture. Again, getting that more abstract view, leading us into a weekend where we can challenge ourselves to incorporate, again, those full moon energies. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to sign up to MTZ Insiders. It is a free newsletter where you do get videos like this and articles and extra content not normally released on social media. You can check out the link down below for that. It's absolutely free. It's just a newsletter once a week straight to your inbox with everything True Sidereal related. But have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.